Guys, I'm so psyched to meet you. This is nuts. So, just a little bit of background before I started. I had heard of you guys before seeing the movie because I had seen you in the movie Roller Coaster when I was a kid on TV. This was before the internet, so we didn't know what it was. But I had a best friend of mine who was from England who told me, "Oh my God, it's Sparks." And then I said, "What's the deal with like the mustache?" And he said, "Well, one's good and one's evil." And I kind of believed that I was throughout the whole
Well,
time.
well, that's a pretty good assessment, I think.
Yeah. But I then though I saw the documentary in January at Sundance online, and I'm in Montreal, and we've been on lockdown with curfew and everything for kind of close to a year. And I have to say, me and my fiance, after watching the documentary, we feel like Sparks has gotten us through lockdown. We would drive to go hiking, these long drives every weekend. All we do is we listen to Sparks all the way over, all the way back, listen to Sparks around the clock. And I have to say, from the bottom of my heart, you guys really kind of got me through lockdown. And
Oh,
I think you guys
Oh,
are
that's so
amazing.
it's
it's so
amazing.
kind of you to say that. Thank you.
It's amazing. Thank you. It's really touching.
And thank you, Edgar, for making this documentary. So, but that brings me to the first question then, Edgar. What made you want to bring the story of Sparks to the masses? I mean, I could see why, because they're geniuses, obviously, but what was it that made this your first documentary?
I just felt that they were the best and most influential band that didn't have a documentary about them. And I'd been a fan for years. And unusually, like if there's, there's lots of kind of bands that I sort of got into when in my early teens, where I was sort of listening to sort of bands that were slightly before my time, like Roxy Music and Queen and T-Rex, and then getting into Sparks. But the difference is Sparks is still going. Like in Sparks, not only is it still making music, but especially since like 2003 with Little Beethoven, I was really just impressed and even like confounded that it was possible that Ron and Russell were bringing out an album every 2 or 3 years. It was like as good as anything they'd ever done. And
Some of
like, and
the
to
best,
kind of,
yeah.
yeah, some of the best, and like sort of, and still going, and still about to bring out new stuff that nobody's heard this year. Like, sort of, it's just like, to me, it was like, wasn't really anybody else that I could think of that was quite like it. And I felt that even though they have their fans, I being one of them, more people needed to know who Ron and Russell were, and how influential they were. And so it was sort of a bit of a no-brainer to me, in terms of like, okay, so I want to find out what makes Sparks tick. Who are the people that influence them? Talk about the career, and along the way, as you meet lots and lots of fans from different walks of life, you not only tell the story of Sparks' career, but the sort of story of pop culture of the last 50 years, and also all of the people who they influenced, which like the footprint is kind of huge. So that was really it. As my thesis was like, this is a band whose golden period is 50 years long.
Ron and Russell, I want to ask you, how gratifying is it that, after this kind of, you guys have always been a cult band, but you seem kind of on the cusp of huge international success, I would say, between this and Annette being the opening night film at the Cannes Film Festival. How gratifying is that after your careers to have this all kind of come together in 1 year?
No, it's pretty ironic. For people who have seen the documentary, it's pretty ironic because they know we've had flirtations with other film projects that didn't come to fruition. And so it never rains, but it pours. And this year to have, Edgar's amazing documentary. And then it's kind of as time, just as luck, whatever would have it, the timing of Annette, the feature movie musical that we've written with and directed by the French director Leos Carax. It's just pretty amazing that everything's kind of come to this period, and so it's just I think it's almost vindication away for Edgar's whole thesis of the documentary too, that kind of the perseverance and persistence that he kind of stressed in the documentary. He even has tangible kind of the fruits of that sort of way of working, and he can be vindicated in a certain way by seeing, this is what I I kind of portrayed in this film. And then the evidence of it is that, having two things, and one that was not in Edgar's hands, obviously the Annette film, but that now the ending of the story wasn't the tragic ending like so many other documentaries where the career is tanked and now the drugs have kicked in and whatever. It's that it kind of the whole thesis of perseverance, maybe winning out in the end in some way that's has materialized.
You guys are kind of like the anti-Oasis, I find, and that you're two brothers that still really love each other and make great music together.
Well, I wouldn't say love, but coexist,
Ron, I got to ask you, so we all have our favorite Sparks records. The one that I keep returning to is Number One in Heaven, especially Triumph of the Human Race, which my fiance, she told me that she thinks it's the greatest song ever written about sperm. And I had to listen to it over and over again. She wants to know if it's about sperm, by the way. She's sure that is.
It is. It's a small category to be a part of, but yes, that's correct.
I just got a text from her, ask about the sperm, because she's thrilled that I'm interviewing you guys.
We're so happy to be asked about that. We so seldom get asked about sperm. So, but no, it is. It was really strange because we'd be performing that song on Top of the Pops to a quarter of the population of the UK, and knowing what it was about. I mean, it wasn't done as a joke, but I mean that is what the song is about, the battle of the sperm to become the champion. And so just knowing that in our heads when we were performing that on television was really trippy.
What were you about to say, Edgar? Sorry, you were breaking in there.
One of my favorite archive clips I couldn't really share in the film because I couldn't really give it the context, but you also performed Tryouts for the Human Race on a BBC Kids show. I think, wow, that's wild to do that song in front of a bunch of boy scouts and girl guides.
I have to learn the ABC, the BC, yeah.
Facts of
one
life.
way to learn about the birds and the bees.
That's right.
One last question then. Where would you guys, so if you could say one album for people to start at for Sparks, what would it be? I know you've said Come On to My House and a couple of other interviews. Would you stick with that, or is there something else that you would choose as like a sampler for people to really get into Sparks?
I'd say it has to be a best of. Yes.
Yeah.
Too hard to pick one from my perspective, but you have a stab, Edgar.
I've narrowed it down to 5 because that's the thing is like Kimono My House is like a classic album, but it doesn't tell the whole story. So I've like got it down to 5 to like when people ask me, I say, okay, Kimono My House, Number One in Heaven, Angst in My Pants, Little Beethoven, Hippopotamus, and that at least gives you like a fifth of the discography and like the shape of the band. But like it's sort of impossible to kind of. That's one of the things that's great about Sparks is that they cannot be defined by just one album.
The best. Thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate it, and you're an inspiration. And it was such a thrill to talk to you.
Thank you.
Tell your wife she was correct. So.
I will. She'll be really happy to hear that. Thanks. Bye, everyone.